Will, working here at VSiN, we get to mess around with the DraftKings markets a lot. We get to see all the things the menu has in store. And one thing that's fun is if there is something you can think of, the odds makers over at DK will end up posting something. And one thing that jumped out to us today is they have a market for the fewest wins in this upcoming NFL season. And I don't know about you. I tried to have a little bit fun with this and look deeper down the board than you would think. But if we're just going to be totally honest, the Arizona Cardinals are going to be an abomination this year. I don't know where you end up on them. However, at 2-1, shortest shot on the board. I have a really hard time betting my money now and not collecting it till February on them to have the fewest wins in the National Football League this year. But here are the odds right here. Your shortest shot on the board is Arizona at 2-1. The Texans at 8-1, followed by the Bucks 9-1, and then the Rams at 10-1, along with the Commanders there. The Raiders, Colts at 12-1, followed by the Titans at 14-1. Will, when you look at the fewest wins market, what jumps out to you team-wise, strategy-wise? Like, what was the first thing that went into your brain?
Yeah, well, you make a good point about all the different things that are available. And as bettors, it's great because the more things they have to put a number on, the more likely they are to make a mistake. It's hard to put good numbers on everything. And I'm not saying they made a mistake on this one, but just in general, the more stuff they have to price, the more likely it is that we get a good number on something. I'm going to, and I did bet, I like something that's not even listed on our screen here. The Chicago Bears, the team I bet last year, which I got a dead heat at, and to explain the rules, if you tie for the worst record, you get half of the winnings. So if you bet Arizona at 2-1 and they tie for the worst record, you get 1-1 in terms of your money plus your money back. But I'm going to go with the Bears at 25-1. To me, look, they won three games last year. People have them at 7.5 wins, or the market has them at 7.5 wins, going from 3 to 8. I just don't see it with this team. And the reason I think there's some value, fewest wins 25-1. Fields gets hit a lot. 91 sacks in 2 years. He's a running quarterback. He's always running. He's always getting hit. And P.J. Walker's the backup. And you just look at this roster, this team. They were left in such disarray. There's just not a lot of talent. Defensive side of the ball, offensive line. Okay, they got DJ Moore, but if you're playing, half the season with PJ Walker, 8-10 games with PJ Walker, if Fields gets hurt, and even if he doesn't, to me, 25-1 on the Bears for a quarterback that's very viable to injury, to me is a bet that I think is worth the value. Again, I agree with you. Life on the line. Arizona probably has the worst record, but just in terms of the number here, 25-1 on the Bears is what I'm looking at.
Well, you bring up a really interesting point because a lot of these teams, in fact, all of these teams, if the quarterback goes down, they're immediately in the mix to win this one, right? Like, anyone loses their quarterback, all of a sudden, you're going to think that they have a shot at having the fewest wins, which is why one of the teams I wanted to talk to you about here, first, let's talk about Fields. Because he's a running quarterback, he is more susceptible to getting injured, whether that's getting hit or, just having to use his legs more, whatever it happens. Something can happen to him. There's more danger for Justin Fields to go down. So I think your point here on Chicago is really one I hadn't thought about because I'm a bit of a lemming. I'm on the hype train with Chicago. I think they might actually be pretty good this year because I do like Justin Fields. But if he gets hurt, I don't know what this team becomes. I really don't. And you look at the schedule. You look at the schedule. And they open hosting Green Bay, go to Tampa, but they have to go to Kansas City. They take on Denver. The Broncos will be a better team. They're at Washington, in division with Minnesota. Who knows what the Raiders will be, but at the Chargers, followed by at the Saints. Those are very two tough matchups. Let's say Fields gets hurt, 3 games into the season. Man, that is an intriguing number you threw out there. I think it was 25-1 on the Bears.
Yes, 25-1.
Wow. I like your mindset. So I'm going to follow a similar mindset. I think this team is not what they used to be a couple years ago. And I think their quarterback is an oft-injured quarterback, which means that we can look through his history and see that this happens to him a lot. He will go down for long chunks of time. And the roster around him is no longer what it once was when they were a Super Bowl contender. In fact, won a Super Bowl with this guy at quarterback. I think the LA Rams with Matthew Stafford coming off of, I think he had a head injury a year ago. He had an elbow injury. And your backups are Stetson Bennett and Brett Rippon with a defense that traded Jalen Ramsey. And it's just Aaron Donald and a bunch of dudes now. If Matt Stafford gets hurt, which he's prone to do, at 10-1, the LA Rams are 100% in the mix to have the fewest wins.
Don't hate it. Thought about it. The only thing for me was like, you do still, if you can keep Stafford healthy, there is enough upper echelon talent with Kupp, Stafford, and Donald, where it's like this team's not going to be awful. They're going to be competitive. I did bet them under for wins too. I got it early when it was 7.5. You do worry about that a little bit, but I totally agree. I mean, this is a guy, Stafford. He's always been hurt. Even when he was younger, he's had issues staying on the field. He's always dinged up. So concussions. Look, he's made a lot of money. He's won a Super Bowl. Probably one more hit, and it might be see you later. There were rumors last offseason he was going to retire. You throw in the back, the neck. I mean, I would put a very look, put it this way. I would be looking to bet under passing yards for Stafford. And probably these are some of the best bets to me, the player props under season long with some of these guys who, again, like you mentioned, you got to wait till the middle of January or early January to collect your money, even if you do win. But, it's just going to be hard for some of these guys to stay healthy. The NFL's a violent game. So any sort of injury, benching, not that Stafford will get benched, but there's so many ways to win these player props. But to get back to your point, the Rams certainly could be in the mix here.
Yeah, no, and when you're betting a lot of this stuff, especially player props game to game, season long, there's more working against those players to achieve those goals than there are in their favor. I mean, you really have to be ahead and have some sort of knowledge of a situation better than the bookmakers do if you're going to bet an over and feel like it's a lock. So a lot of this, when we're handicapping the fewest wins here, as we look at the DraftKings betting board, is the quarterback position. As we've talked to now with both teams, we've brought up the Rams and the Bears. So I want to throw a couple at you here that could be interesting. A little bit longer, so obviously there's risk involved, and the market suggests that they probably won't be there. But can I get you involved in the Tennessee Titans at 14-1? I mean, I am a Ryan Tannehill guy, I will admit that, but coming off a year where he was hurt, he's only getting older, and they've asked him to do a lot with a little on the outside. He's never had less to work with at receiver. I mean, the options through the air are horrific for this Titans team. And they only have one home game in the month of November. Think about that. So later in the year. Week 7, the bye is early. There's a chance if Ryan Tannehill struggles, we could see Will Levis earlier than we expected. Maybe coming off that bye against the Falcons in Week 8. And let me tell you this. I watch a lot of college football. Will Levis is not ready to be a starter in the NFL, Will. I just do not see it from him. They could turn the keys over to him, have him take over with a lack of weapons. It doesn't matter if you have Derrick Henry to run the ball, if you're always trailing in games. I'm not saying they'll be there, but I'm saying the Titans at 14-1 have a situation that does intrigue me.
I don't want to go betting every team, but you made a compelling case, and I might think about adding them at 14-1. They just have the schedules in front of us. Not impossible. They start 0-4. Now, it's the NFL. You could win or lose any game. At the Saints, home versus the Chargers, at the Browns, which we don't know what they're going to be. They're a confusing team. But then the Bengals. So at Saints, Chargers, at Browns, Bengals. If you're 0-4, like these seasons can get off the rails quickly. You have a young quarterback there. You have Caleb Williams, which is the other thing with these teams where, hey, if any of these teams that start off 2-5, 1-6, have an injury. I know nobody tanks in the NFL, but it is something to think about where, hey, maybe we shut it down. This isn't our year. Maybe you trade Henry again. Getting ahead of ourselves, but that's a tough September schedule. 14-1. I think that's a good bet.
The Caleb Williams point is great because I think drafting Will Levis is a great draft pick if he's so bad that he nets you Caleb Williams the next season, right? Like, it is a good pick.
And it's not like they picked them high enough where it's like, oh, we can't pick another quarterback. We've seen these teams pivot, whether it's Kyler Murray, whether it was Clausen years ago. It's not like they picked them so high where you can't pivot and trade them and pick somebody else. They absolutely could. Yeah,
in that same division, by the way, the Colts 12-1, schedule-wise is the only reason why, and I don't know if Richardson's going to start right away, and either way, it doesn't matter. The Colts' schedule is pretty brutal to start. Jacksonville, at Houston, not a big deal. But then Baltimore, the Rams, Tennessee, at Jacksonville again. I think the Jags are going to be awesome. Cleveland, New Orleans, Carolina, New England. I think they start maybe 3-7, but there's a possibility, depending on how the quarterback position looks for Indy, they could go 1-9 to begin.
Yep, and that's why we got 14-1 on Houston, on Tennessee, because they do get 2 games against the Colts, 2 games against Houston. So that is built in there.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.